Welcome, initiates! You know the drill. Secret criteria met, bonus episode earned. And a real bonus episode this time, not a bonus episode last week. Ugh, this is getting confusing. Let me down my shots and get right to it. Hail the Grand Jackalope and her mysterious ways. Ugh. Ugh. Tales from the Cryptid. Presented by number 13. The ancient Egyptians were stone-cold furry freaks, and you know it. Legions of animal-headed gods just yiffing away at the bottom of one big mythological fur pile. Jackals on dogs, on cats, on lions, on hawks, on crocodiles. Nasty stuff. Freak nasty. Good nasty. And who can blame them? Who among us has not gazed at the illustration on page 50 of Deities and Demigods and had a strange awakening? Or walked away from a screening of Space Jam with a strange stirring in our loins? A stronger man than I, that's for sure. All uncomfortable joking and oversharing aside, there are plenty of good reasons for Egyptian deities to have animal heads. Ancient Egyptian art was highly stylized with very little room to add naturalized details. After all, there's only so many possible variations of a basic human figure, unless you want to develop a series of elaborate and increasingly preposterous hats indicating rank and office. Animal heads are an elegant solution to this problem, as they are visually distinctive and act as a shorthand for the attributes of the deities depicted. Sometimes they're obvious. Bast, goddess of cats, has a cat head. Sometimes they take a bit more effort. Sobek, lord of rivers, has the head of a crocodile. Anubis, the psychopomp who deals with the dead, has the head of a carrion-eating jackal. Sometimes they're less literal and more symbolic. Savage, warlike Sekhmet has a lion head because lions are fierce. Keen-eyed, relentless Horus has a hawk head because hawks are tenacious hunters. Mysterious, enigmatic Thoth has a ibis head because those things are just weird. So keeping that in mind, let me ask you a simple question. What kind of animal is Set? You know Set? Seth? Sutek? Gods of desert storms in the night? Son of Geb the earth and Nut the sky? Husband of Nephthys? Brother of Osiris? Chopped Osiris into tiny little pieces and usurped the kingdom of Egypt until he was finally overthrown by his nephew Horus? Has the powers of a 15th level cleric, 17th level fighter, 30th level illusionist, and 15th level assassin? Wields a +4 spear of darkness and can change anyone's alignment to lawful evil with just a touch? That's it? What kind of animal is he? I know you can see it in your mind's eye. It's gray or maybe black, maybe a little reddish. There are prominent squared-off ears and a long, droopy snout. Oh, what is that? Is it a donkey? It's a good guess. The ancient Greeks certainly thought so, perhaps thanks to a ritual where the priests of Horus at Edfu would symbolically take revenge on Set by dismembering an onager or wild ass. Ancient Greeks, though, aren't ancient Egyptians, and Egyptian sources don't identify Set as a donkey. Set also doesn't have any of the qualities we would traditionally associate with donkeys either. Stubbornness, foolishness, humility. Besides, there are numerous depictions of donkeys and asses in Egyptian art, and they don't look like Set. Is it a jackal? Another good guess! He does kind of look like a jackal. Once again, though, there are numerous depictions of jackals in Egyptian art, and they always have pointy ears and not the squared-off ears that Set has. Besides, there's already a jackal-headed god, Anubis, and it sort of defeats the point of animal head-based symbolism if you give two gods with different attributes the same head. Maybe this would be easier if we understood Set a bit more. He was one of the oldest gods of Egypt, a key part of the Heliopolitan Aeneid. Despite that, he is not a god of Lower Egypt, but of Upper Egypt, and really not there either, not truly. His realm is the desert beyond, lawless, savage, and wild. He is not a nice guy and unpleasant to be around. He ripped his way out of his mother Nut's womb, murdered his brother Osiris, and sexually abused his nephew Horus. They tend to leave that last one out of the kid-friendly mythology books. He creates conflict and chaos and natural disasters wherever he goes. For all that, though, he is an integral part of the pantheon. Each night when the gods sally forth in their bark to do battle with Apep, the sun-devouring serpent, it is Set and Set alone who has the strength to slay the serpent and allow a new day to dawn. Later, when Egyptian mythology starts to mix with the Semitic religions to the east, Set is identified with Baal-Hadad and becomes the god who drives back Yam, the insatiable sea, helping to create the land. Is there an animal that's strong and supremely dangerous, but still utterly necessary for the functioning of society? Maybe a bull, I guess, but I think Hathor and Apis have that one locked up. Wait, in the story where Set murders Osiris, he sometimes takes an animal form to do the deed, usually an ass or a bull or a crocodile. When he eats the eye of Horus, he takes the form of a black boar. Except that doesn't help either. These stories stress that Set is changing form, which means that his normal form is not that of an ass or a bull or a crocodile or a boar. It only tells us what Set isn't, not what he is. Okay, this is getting us nowhere. Maybe we should take a closer look at the animal itself. Fortunately, there are numerous depictions of the whole animal, the Shah, in Egyptian art and hieroglyphs. We've already discussed the head with its long squared-off ears and droopy snoot. The body is dog-like or wolf-like, but extremely thin, almost like a greyhound. And the tail is utterly distinctive, long and always straight as an arrow, with something on the end that could either be a forked tuft like a bird's or a bristly poof like a wild pig's, depending on how you squint. It's usually black or gray, but sometimes red. Doesn't sound like anything, does it? Don't expect an answer to this question today, because this is a problem that has bedeviled Egyptologists for centuries. The Shah, Set animal, or Typhonian beast has characteristics that match several different animals, but doesn't match any of them exactly. Based off the overall canine appearance of the Shah, some scholars have identified it as a dog, either an African wild dog, or a golden jackal, or a hyena, or perhaps a domestic dog breed similar to the Saluki, but whose distinctive features have long since been bred out of the line. The problem is, there are numerous depictions of dogs in Egyptian art, and once again, they don't look like the Shah. Other scholars, focusing on the prominent squared-off ears, have suggested that it could be a fennec fox or an aardvark. Others, focusing on the bristly tail, have identified it as a wild ass or giraffe. Others have identified it as an antelope, camel, crocodile, gazelle, hare, hippopotamus, jerboa, okapi, onager, oryx, or wild ass. Again, none of these animals quite fit the full appearance or the overall vibe. Some have suggested that the Shah might be a fantastic beast created by artists inspired by the skulls of the Civatherium, an extinct variety of short-necked giraffe, whose bony horns may have been misinterpreted as squared-off ears. Civatherium skulls have been found in temples devoted to Set, but as intriguing as this possibility is, it seems more likely that the skulls were valued because of their resemblance to the Shah, rather than serving as an inspiration for the Shah. Other scholars have suggested that the Shah was a real animal, but hunted to extinction because of its association with Set. Sounds good, except, well, there were temples to Set and priests of Set, weren't there? You'd think they'd have something to say about that. Or that maybe we'd have mummified versions or some bones to go off of. For a while, the leading theory was that the Shah was actually some sort of feral pig or wild boar. Egyptologist P.E. Newberry based this theory on some solid observations. That the pig was a sacred animal to the Egyptians, that Set sometimes transforms himself into a wild boar, and that there are several types of feral and semi-feral pigs that have lean bodies and erect tails, notably the old Irish greyhound pig. This all seems very promising until you realize that Newberry had never actually seen a feral pig. He'd only ever read descriptions of them in books. If you ever actually see a feral pig in the flesh, you'd agree they have lean haunches, but they still have a distinctly porcine shape, which the Shah does not. It doesn't even have tusks. This has led most scholars to throw up their hands and declare that the Shah is purely an imaginary animal, or at best a composite creature made from bits and pieces of other animals. If so, it's the least out there imaginary animal ancient Egypt ever dreamed up. Their usual flights of fancy are things like the Secha, a leopard with a snake for a head, or the Sak, which had the front part of a lion, the back part of a horse, the head of a hawk, a tail with a lotus flower on the end, and 8 teats. At this point, the Set animal will remain a baffling enigma unless we discover some hidden temples, preserved remains, or vast trove of hitherto unknown hieroglyphic writings. That's okay. I already know everything I need to know about Set. He has an armor class of -4, 378 hit points, 59% magic resistance, and all psionic attack and defense modes. Key sources for this episode include Geraldine Pinch's Handbook of Egyptian Mythology, P.E. Newberry's The Pig and the Cult Animal of Set, and Jim Ward's Deities and Demigods. Connections. You may have noticed there's a lot of Dungeons & Dragons references in this episode. If you like that, why not check out The Die of Tomorrow Today, our Series 4 pan to the 30-sided die, or previous bonus episode, Grandiose but Straightforward, about an obscure bit of D&D fanon. And now, a preview of Series 10. We're almost done with our prep work on Series 10, which will take us from down under to the top of the world, and from the cradle of civilization to the ass end of Florida. As usual, here's a list of some of the works we consulted in our research. A Time to Remember, Altai Himalaya, King Dragon, Mile Marker Zero, Mount Batten, a Biography, The American Backwoods Frontier, an Ethnic and Ecological Interpretation, and The Mirage Factory, Illusion, Imagination, and the Invention of Los Angeles. We'll be back in 2 weeks to kick things off proper with an episode we're calling With Both Hands. Until then, quid minime sciant, optime scire. Tales from the Cryptid was written and produced by David White for the Ancient and Esoteric Order of the Jackalope, and was released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 international license. All rights reserved, all wrongs reversed. A script for this episode with sources, links, and more can be found on our website, orderofthejackalope.com. That's orderofthejackalope.com with hyphens between the words. Do you have opinions about this episode? Why not share them over on our Discord server, link in the show notes. Or tag us on social media. We can be found at orderjackalope on Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, and Tumblr. If none of those options works for you, you can always send us an old-fashioned email at jackalope@orderofthejackalope.com. We're recruiting new lodge members. We'll initiate anyone into the secret mysteries. All they have to do is share a secret mystery of their own. Visit our website and click Join Us for more information.